The discipline of classical music is a very demanding one. There are many modes of preparation that are involved in the area of rehearsal and general overall practice. The classical genre of music is very demanding because there is a special emphasis on accuracy and precision in regards to performance. Every note has to be correct and played in the precise manner in which the composer had in mind when they created the composition. Therefore, this process would have to be quite demanding on the performers. The classical musician is a very different type of musician that is dedicated to perfection in every aspect of their discipline. The reason for this is because classical music, unlike a number of other musical genres with the exception of jazz, is a genre that is based on written works of the composers. These works aren't altered in any kind of way. They are kept intact and unchanged from the time that they were written. The notes aren't altered, so the same concept is applied in the same regard to performance. This is the task for the classical musician. They have to achieve a certain mode of perfection in the performance of the compositions that they play. They actually don't have the freedom to add different elements to the composition, although there are many performances where the musician performs certain pieces in unique ways in terms of personal expression and interpretation. However, even in these circumstances, the performances have to stay true to the written notes. In observing the regard to such accuracy, precision, and attention to detail of the compositions from the perspective of the musician, it becomes clear that there must be a significant level of preparation involved. Understandably, as with many performances, there is a process of development that is required for the performers, otherwise the performances would surely suffer. This process, of course, consists of a number of different levels of training. Each level has a high degree of hard work that really does require a high level of consistency, similar to that of a professional athlete. The first stage that should be mentioned is the conditioning of the musician. Good conditioning, both physical and mental, must take place regardless of the musician's instrument. From the aspect of mental conditioning, the musician must be focused on the task or composition at hand. The instrument must be inspected and well maintained, but in order for this to happen, the musician really needs to be in the mental focus to be aware of this. This may seem like a subtle portion of this process, but proper maintenance of the instrument is actually one of the most important things to be attentive to. Before the instrument is played, it must be checked to ensure that it is properly tuned. If the instrument is not checked for tuning, then the performance may throw off the order of other instruments as well. Remember, the composition itself is written, and all the instruments must follow each of the notes that are written. When the instrument is consistently in tune, the composition has a certain sound that becomes somewhat familiar to the musicians involved, so an instrument that's out of tune is immediately recognized. In classical music, the composition usually includes multiple instruments, like an orchestra. So even though something like an out-of-tune instrument can be quickly recognized, it can be a bit tricky finding exactly which instrument is the culprit, and can also cause a delay in rehearsals, which is not a good thing. The physical aspect of the training process would include warming up the joints along with proper breathing exercises. Warming up the joints involves several opening drills or movements on the instrument itself. This can include several playing types of patterns to be played up and down the body of the instrument for about 15 to 20 minutes before the actual rehearsal takes place. Along with warming up is correct breathing while playing the instrument. Correct breathing is very necessary when it comes to the overall aspect of practicing and performing. When the breathing is done correctly, the body can function at a level of calmness with a strong sense of control. This helps to provide the musician with a certain clarity and peace for them to play their instrument with accuracy and precision. When the time comes for the performance, the musician is adequately prepared for it. Some musicians do a wide range of holistic exercises rather than doing exercises that specifically concentrate on the fingers or limbs that are specifically involved. This process is said to give them a better overall advantage for their craft because the entire body is being trained and prepared. The next stage is the practice and review of music theory. Music theory is exactly what the name implies, the theory of music. This area involves the practice of the rules associated with music, namely correct rhythm, tonality, and pitch. A series of drills are done in the warm-ups as discussed previously, but it is followed by the actual playing of the composition. Practicing music theory relies heavily on knowing the language of the rules associated with it. Reading music is amongst the main elements of this theory. Music theory enables the musician to understand the written notation of each composition along with the symbols included with these compositions. Understanding these elements will help the musician to retain the material and the specific context that it contains in regards to the true expression of the piece. Following the area of music theory would be the reviewing of the composition concerning the expression of each composition. In this area of training, the musician digs deep into the mind of the composer to get a deeper understanding of the manner in which the piece is to be played. The very interesting thing about classical music compositions is that each of them were written with a story behind them. A good example of this would be the composer Beethoven, who was declared deaf, and yet he composed many masterpieces. It is believed that he said he felt his compositions, not from using his ears for hearing, but it was primarily from feeling it. The next stage of this would be the rehearsal, where all the stages above are included. In this stage of training, the above stages are applied and used together harmoniously. The rehearsals are done just the way the performances will be performed. In other words, the way that they practice will be the same way they perform. This builds muscle memory and also helps to develop good habits that will ensure the successful performance. It also builds a level of confidence that will help the musician to perform with a certain type of ease that otherwise they would not have been able to achieve without. Finally, the actual performance is the result of these elements mentioned above. This is when all the hard work comes into play and not just practice. The performance is the result and reward in a sense. Musicians are dedicated in their work and their time to training themselves and studying their craft for this very moment. This is the moment when they get to bring their work to life for all the world to experience. It is a moment they can successfully be achieved with this type of preparation. The classical musician has a challenging task every time the project is chosen, but the hard work and dedication plays an important role in reminding them why they are who they are. In conclusion, the classical musicians are engaged in highly demanding challenges when they take on new projects. So the mental and physical trainings are definitely key to their success. When researching the average age of these individuals, it becomes clear that they, on the most part, began their studies very early in their lives. It becomes apparent that their dedication and discipline that is required in such a field is not something to be regarded lightly. The irony is that classical music, when compared to modern-day music or today's music, is very unpopular to mainstream. A recent experiment was done with a famous violinist by the name of Joshua Bell, who decided that he would play in a subway for about an hour to see how much he can actually make. Well-known classic enthusiasts stated that they thought for sure he could generate anywhere around $150, but what really happened was a bold taste of reality. Bell did play for about 40 minutes, and out of about 1,097 people, about 27 actually stopped and gave him a donation. Now here was this award-winning violinist in disguise playing very well-known classical compositions in the subway, and only 27 out of 1,097 people even stopped to listen, never mind give him a donation. On the other hand, we have rap, pop, and many other genres of today's music that are top-selling in the area of billions of dollars. The quality of music is based on the listener in many cases. This is true. But the genre of classical music is almost unquestionably seen by audience who truly understand the legacy and value it brings to those who can appreciate it. This understanding and conservation of this genre of music is the responsibility of the musicians to represent it to its perfection in order to keep it alive and vibrant, so that the generations after will enjoy its value with great appreciation. In this way, the demanding hard work and dedication of the classical musician can be better understood.